Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our reading of Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is the Penguin Speculative Fiction Special, a brand new series by Penguin. These naked hardcovers with originally commissioned artwork on the front, the back, and the end papers. Just lovely things, and also it turns out, and I'm learning this in the way that you would learn it, very solid. It's a very solid thing. It turns out that this is the volume that I'm reading you. We are reading Dracula. We are going through it chapter by chapter, which never occurred to me to do. I've participated in a read aloud of this book in the past. I've done a buddy read of this book at least once. I talk about it all the time. I've read it a million times. So it never occurred to me to just read it to you, but you seem to like it, and I certainly do. So we are up to chapter 10. I'm actually reading you two Victorian novels right at the moment, and the chapter numbers are the same. But we're going to run out of Dracula a lot faster than we run out of Trollope. So we are now at chapter 10, and if you remember, chapter 9 ended in a cliffhanger. Dr. Seward has been writing letters back and forth to his old mentor, Abraham Van Helsing, about the status of Lucy Westenra, a young woman who has been having strangely anemic-like symptoms, but not actually anemia. And Seward's last dispatch to Van Helsing was that she's suddenly taken a turn for the worse, and that he must come at once. This chapter 10, is going to continue Stoker's amazing narrative variation that he is doing. He's switching up the means of the narration constantly, so that you're never quite on your toes and are constantly rushing forward. One of the reasons, I think, for why this book has been so immortally successful and constantly taken up by new generations is that it's really hard to stop reading it. So this is chapter 10, and it starts with a letter from Dr. Seward to Arthur Holmwood. My dear Art, my news today is not so good. Lucy this morning had gone back a bit. There is, however, one good thing which has arisen from it. Mrs. Westenra was naturally anxious concerning Lucy, and has consulted me professionally about her. I took advantage of the opportunity and told her that my old master, Van Helsing, the great specialist, was coming to stay with me, and that I would put her in his charge conjointly with myself. So now we can come and go without alarming her on duty, for a shock to her would mean sudden death, and this, in Lucy's weakened condition, might be disastrous to her. So Mrs. Westenra has received her death sentence. She has a heart failure. We are hedged in with difficulties, all of us, my poor old fellow, but please God, we shall come through them all right. If any need, I shall write, so that if you do not hear from me, take it for granted that I am simply waiting for news. In haste, yours ever, John Seward. Then we go to John Seward's diary for the 7th of September. The first thing Van Helsing said to me when we met at Liverpool Street was, "Have you said anything to our young friend of the lover of her?" "No," I said. "I waited till I'd seen you, as I said in my telegram. I wrote him a letter simply telling him that you were coming, as Miss Westenra was not quite so well, and that I should let him know if need be." "Right, my friend," he said. "Quite right. Better he not know as yet. Perhaps he shall never know. I pray so, for if it be needed that he shall know all. And, my good friend John, let me caution you, you deal with the madmen. All men are mad in some way or other. Do tell, Dr. Van Helsing. And inasmuch as you deal discreetly with your madmen, so deal with God's madmen, too, the rest of the world. You tell not your madmen what you do, nor why you do it. You tell them not what you think. So you shall keep knowledge in its place, where it may rest, where it may gather its kind around it, and breed." What the hell are you talking about? You foreign loon? What knowledge is going to breed? "You and I shall keep as yet what we know here, and here." He touched me on the heart, and on the forehead, and then touched himself in the same way. "I have not for myself taught at present. Later I shall unfold to you." "Why not now?" I asked. "It may do some good. We may arrive at some decision." He stopped and looked at me and said, "My friend John, when the corn is green even before it has ripened, while the milk of the Mother Earth is in him, and thus the sunshine has not yet begun to paint him with his gold, the husbandman he pull the ear and rub him between his rough hands and blow away the green chaff and say to you, 'Look, he's good corn. He will make good crop when the time comes.' I did not see the application. Sorry, that's Seward. I was so caught up in Van Helsing's absolute gibberish. Now he's talking about chafing corn ears between his hands. I did not see the application and told him so. No, Seward, you didn't see the application because you might be a drug addict, but you're not insane. For reply, he reached over and took my ear in his hand and pulled it playfully, as he used to long ago at lectures. I'm sure he pulled something at those lectures. Was that before or after you sucked gangrene out of a wound? The good husbandman tell you then because he knows, but not till then. But you do not find the good husband dig up his planted corn to see if he grow, that it is the children who play at husbandry, and not for those who take it as a work of their life. See you now, friend John, I have sown my corn, and nature has her work to do in making it sprout. If he sprout at all, there's some promise. I wait till the ear begins to swell. He broke off, for he evidently saw that I understood. Then he went on, very gravely. Well, I'm glad you understand. You were always a very careful student, and your casebook was ever more full than the rest. You were only student then, now you are master, and I trust that good habit have not failed. Remember, my friend, that knowledge is stronger than memory, and we should not trust the weaker. Even if you have not kept a good practice, let me tell you that in this case of our dear miss is one that may be, mind I say may be, of such interest to us and others that all the rest shall not make kick him the beam, as your people say. No one says that. No one says that. No one knows what you're talking about, you foreign loon. Take them good note of it. Nothing is too small. I counsel you put down in record even your doubts and surmises. Hereafter it may be of interest to you to see how true you guess. We learn from failure, not from success. When I described Lucy's symptoms, the same as before, but infinitely more marked, he looked very grave, but said nothing. He took with him a bag in which were many instruments and drugs, the ghastly paraphernalia of our beneficial trade, as he once called it in one of his lectures, the equipment of a professor of the healing craft. When we were shown in, Mrs. Westenra met us. She was alarmed, but not nearly so much as I expected to find her. Nature, in one of her beneficent moods, had ordained that even death has some antidote to its own terrors. Here, in a case where any shock may prove fatal, matters are so ordered that, from some cause or other, the things not personal, even the terrible change in her daughter, to whom she is attached, do not seem to reach her. It is something like that, like the way Dame Nature gathers round a foreign body an envelopment of some insensitive tissue which can protect from evil that which would otherwise harm by contact. If this be an ordered selfishness, then we must pause before we condemn any one of the vice of egoism, for there may be deeper roots for its causes than we have knowledge of. Or it could be that the apothecary sedated her. This would be the normal course of events with a heart patient, to whom any shock might be fatal. You would give them a light sedative. I used my knowledge of this phase of spiritual pathology, and laid down a rule that she should not be present with Lucy or think of her illness more than was absolutely required. She assented readily, so readily that I saw again the hand of nature fighting for life. Van Helsing and I were shown up to Lucy's room. If I was shocked when I saw her yesterday, I was horrified when I saw her today. She was ghastly, chalkily pale. The red seemed to have gone even from her lips and gums, and the bones of her face stood out prominently. Her breathing was painful to see or hear. Van Helsing's face grew set as marble, and his eyebrows converged till they almost touched over his nose. Lucy lay motionless and did not seem to have the strength to speak, so for a while we were all silent. Then Van Helsing beckoned to me, and we went gently out of the room. The instant we had closed the door, he stopped. He stepped quickly along the passageway to the next door, which was open. Then he pulled me quickly in with him and closed the door. I'm sure he wants to yank you into the nearest closet, Johnny boy. My God, he said, this is dreadful. There is no time to be lost. She will die from sheer want of blood to keep the heart's action as it should be. There must be transfusion of blood at once. Is it you or me? I am younger and stronger, Professor. It must be me. Then get ready at once. I will bring up my bag. I am prepared. I went downstairs with him, and as we were going there was a knock at the hall door. When we reached the hall, the maid had just opened it, and Arthur was stepping in quickly. He rushed up to me, saying in an eager whisper, "Jack, I was so anxious I read between the lines of your letter and have been in agony. The dad was better, so I ran down here to see for myself. Is not that gentleman Dr. Van Helsing? I'm so thankful of you, sir, for coming. When first the professor's eye had lit upon... I keep messing that up. When first the professor's eye had lit upon him, he had been angry at any interruption at such a time. But now, as he took in his stalwart proportions and recognized the strong young manhood which seemed to emanate from him, his eyes gleamed. Without a pause, he said to him gravely as he held out his hand, "Sir, you have come in time. You are the lover of our dear miss. She is bad, very bad. Nay, my child, do not go like that." For he suddenly grew pale and sat down in a chair, almost fainting. "You are to help her. You can do more than any man live, and your courage is your best help." "What can I do?" asked Arthur hoarsely. "Tell me, and I shall do it. My life is hers, and I shall give the last drop of blood in my body for her." The professor had a strongly humorous side, and I could, from old knowledge, detect a trace of its origin in his answer. "My young sir, I do not ask so much as that. Not the last." "What shall I do?" There was fire in his eyes, and his open nostril quivered with intent. Van Helsing slapped him on the shoulder. "Come, you are a man, and it is a man we want. You are better than me, better than my friend John." Arthur looked bewildered, and the professor went on by explaining in a kindly way. "Young miss is bad, very bad. She wants blood, and blood she must have or die. My friend John and I have consulted. We are about to perform what we call a transfusion of blood, to transfer from full veins of the one to the empty veins which pine for him. John was to give his blood, as he is young and strong, and me..." Here Arthur took my hand and wrung it in hard silence. "Such a good man. But now you are here. You are more good than us, old and young, who toil much in the world of thought. Our nerves are not so calm, and our blood not so bright as yours." Arthur turned to him and said, "If you only knew how gladly I would die for her, you would understand." He stopped, with a sort of choke in his voice. "Good boy," said Helsing. "In the not so far off you will be happy that you have done all for your love. Come now, we must be silent. You shall kiss her once before it is done, then you must go, and you must leave at my sign. Say no word to madam. You know how it is with her. There must be no shock. Any knowledge of this would be one. Come." We all went up to Lucy's room. Arthur, by direction, remained outside. Lucy turned her head and looked at us, but said nothing. She was not asleep, but she was simply too weak to make the effort. Her eyes spoke to us, that was all. Van Helsing took some things from his bag and laid them on the little table out of sight. He then mixed a narcotic, and coming over to the bed, he said cheerily, "Now, little miss, here is your medicine. Drink it off like a good child. See, I lift you so that may you swallow easy. Yes." She made the effort with success. It astonished me how long it took the drug to act. This, in fact, marked the extent of her weakness. The time seemed endless until sleep began to flicker in her eyelids. At last, however, the narcotic began to manifest its potency, and she fell into a deep sleep. When the professor was satisfied, he called Arthur into the room and bade him strip off his coat. Then he added, "You may take that one little kiss whilst I bring over the table. Friend John, help to me." So neither of us looked whilst he bent over her. Van Helsing, turning to me, said, "He is so young and strong, and of blood so pure, we need not defibrillate it." Okay, I don't trust this guy. Then, with swiftness but with absolute method, Van Helsing performed the operation. As the transfusion went on, something like life began to come back into poor Lucy's cheeks, and through Arthur's glowing pallor and joy of his face seemed absolutely to behold. The joy of his face seemed absolutely to shine. After a bit I began to grow anxious, for the loss of blood was telling on Arthur, strong a man as he was. It gave me an idea of what terrible strain Lucy's system must have undergone, that what weakened Arthur only partially restored her. But the professor's face was set, and he stood watch in hand with his eyes fixed now on the patient and now on Arthur. I could hear my own heart beat. Presently he said in a soft voice, "Do not stir an instant. It is enough. You attend him. I will look to her." When all was over, I could see how much Arthur was weakened. I dressed the wound and took his arm to bring him away. When Van Helsing spoke without turning around, the man seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. The brave lover, I think, deserves another kiss, which he shall have presently. And as he had now finished the operation, he adjusted the pillow to the patient's bed. As he did so, the narrow black velvet band which she seems always to wear around her throat, buckled with an old diamond buckle which her lover had given her, was dragged a little up and showed a red mark on her throat. Arthur did not notice it, but I could hear the deep hiss of indrawn breath, which is one of Van Helsing's way of betraying emotion. He hadn't seen it. He hadn't seen the throat marks until now. He said nothing at the moment, but turned to me, saying, "Now take down our brave young lover. Give him of the port wine. Let him lie down a while. He must go home and rest, sleep much, and eat much, that he may be recruited of what he has been given to his love. He must not stay here. Hold a moment. I may take it, sir, that you are anxious of result. Then bring it with you that in all ways the operation was successful. You have saved her life this time, and you can go home and rest easy, in mind that all that is can be. But I shall tell her all when she is well. She shall love you none the less for what you have done. Goodbye." When Arthur had gone back to the room, Lucy was sleeping gently, but her breathing was stronger. I could see the counterpane move as her breast heaved. By the bedside sat Van Helsing, looking at her intently. The velvet band again covered the red mark. I asked the professor in a whisper, "What do you make of that mark on her throat?" "What do you make of it?" "I have not seen it yet," I answered, and then there proceeded to loose the band. Just over the external jugular vein were two punctures, not large, but not wholesome looking. There was no sign of disease, but the edges were white and worn looking, as if by some trituration. Digging. Repeated digging. As if someone has used those holes many times. It at once occurred to me that this wound, or whatever it was, might be the means that manifest loss of blood. But I abandoned the idea as soon as formed, for such a thing could not be. The whole bed would have been drenched to the scarlet with the blood that the girl might have lost to leave such a pallor as she had been before the transfusion. And if the blood doesn't go onto the bed, where could it go? "Well," said Van Helsing. "Well," said I can make nothing of it." The professor stood up. "I must go back to Amsterdam tonight," he said. "There are books and things which I want. You must remain here all night, and you must not let your sight pass from her." "Shall I have a nurse?" I asked. "We are the best nurses, you and I. You keep watch all night, see that she is well fed, and that nothing disturbs her. You must not sleep all night. Later on we can sleep, you and I. I shall be back as soon as possible, and then we may begin." "May begin?" I said. "What on earth do you mean?" "We shall see," he answered as he hurried out. He came back a moment later and put his head inside the door and said, with a warning finger held up, "Remember, she is in your charge. If you leave her and harm befall, you shall not sleep easy hereafter." Then we continue with Dr. Seward's diary for the next day. I sat up all night with Lucy. The opiate worked itself off towards dusk, and she waked naturally. She looked a different being from what she had been before the operation. Her spirits even were good, and she was full of happy vivacity, but I could see evidences that the absolute prostration which she had undergone. When I told Mrs. Westenra that Dr. Van Helsing had directed that I should sit up with her, she almost pooh-poohed the idea, pointing out her daughter's renewed strength and excellent spirits. I was firm, however, and made preparations for my long vigil. When her maid had prepared her for the night, I came in, having in the meantime had supper, and took a seat by the bedside. She did not in any way make any objection, but looked at me gratefully whenever I caught her eye. After a long spell, she seemed to be sinking off to sleep, but with an effort seemed to pull herself together and shook it off. This was repeated several times, with great effort and shorter pauses as the time moved on. It was apparent that she did not want to sleep, so I tackled the subject at once. "Why do you not want to go to sleep?" "No, I am afraid." "Afraid to go to sleep? Why so? It is the boon we all crave for." "You all certainly do." Not if you were like me. If sleep was to you a presage of horror." "A presage of horror? What on earth do you mean?" "I don't know. Oh, I don't know. And that is what is so terrible. All this weakness comes to me in sleep, until I dread the very thought." "But, my dear girl, you may sleep tonight. I am here watching you, and I can promise that nothing will happen." I can trust you." I seized the opportunity and said, "I promise you that if I see any evidence of bad dreams, I will wake you at once." Oh, you will, really? How good you are to me. Then I will sleep. And almost at the word, she gave a deep sigh of relief and sank back, asleep. We have no idea what her own life has been like, this weird nightmare that has crept up upon her. All night long I watched by her. She never stirred, but slept on in deep, tranquil, life-giving, health-giving sleep. Her lips were slightly parted, and her breast rose and fell with the regularity of a pendulum. There was a smile on her face, and it was evident that no bad dreams had come to disturb her peace of mind. In the early morning her maid came, and I left her in the care and took myself back home, for I was anxious about many things. I sent a short wire to Van Helsing and then to Arthur, telling them of the excellent results of the operation. My own work, with its manifold arrears, took me all day to clear off. It was dark when I was able to inquire about my zoophagous patient. That's Mr. Renfield. The report was good. He had been quite quiet for the past day and night. A telegram came from Van Helsing in Amsterdam while I was at dinner, suggesting that I should be at Hillingham tonight, as it might be well to be at hand, and stating that he was leaving by night mail and would join me early in the morning. And then we have the 9th of September. I was pretty tired and worn out when I got to Hillingham. For 2 nights I had hardly had a wink of sleep, and my brain was beginning to feel that numbness which marks cerebral exhaustion. Lucy was up and in cheerful spirits. When she shook hands with me, she looked sharply in my face and said, "No sitting up tonight for you. You are worn out." "I am quite well again. Indeed, I am, and if there is to be any sitting up, it is I who will sit up with you." I would not argue the point, but went and had my supper. Lucy came with me, and, enlivened by her charming presence, I made an excellent meal, and had a couple of glasses of the more than excellent port. Then Lucy took me upstairs, and showed me to a room next to her own, where a cozy fire was burning. "Now," she said, "you must stay here. I shall leave this door open, and my door too. You can lie on the sofa, for I know nothing that would induce any of you doctors to go to bed whilst there's a patient about the horizon. If I want anything, I shall call out, and you can come to me at once." I could not but acquiesce, for I was dog-tired, and could not have sat up had I tried. So on her renewing her promise to call me if she should want anything, I lay on the sofa and forgot about everything. And then we get an extract from Lucy's own diary, dated on the 9th of September. "I feel so happy tonight. I have been so miserably weak that to be able to think and move about is like feeling sunshine after a long spell of east wind out of the steel sky. Somehow, Arthur feels very, very close to me. I seem to feel his presence warm about me. I suppose it is that sickness and weakness are selfish things and turn our inner eyes and sympathies on ourselves, whilst health and strength give love rein, and in that thought and feeling he can wander where he wills. I know where my thoughts are, if Arthur only knew. My dear, dear, your ears must be tingle as you sleep as mine do waking. Oh, the blissful rest of last night! How I slept, with that dear good Dr. Seward watching me, and tonight I shall not fear to sleep, since he is close at hand and within call. Thank everybody for being so good to me. Thank God. Good night, Arthur." Then we get Dr. Seward's diary for the 10th of September. "I was conscious of the professor's hand on my head." How long had it been there, I wonder? "And started awake all in a second. That is one of the things that we learn in an asylum, at any rate." "And how is our patient?" "Well, when I left her, or rather when she left me," I answered. "Come, let us see," he said, and together we went into the room. The blind was down, and I went over to raise it gently, whilst Van Helsing stepped with his soft, cat-like tread over to the bed. As I raised the blind, the morning sunlight flooded through the room. I heard Professor's low hiss of inspiration, and knowing its rarity, a deadly fear shot through my heart. As I passed over, he moved back, and his exclamation of horror, "Gott in Himmel!" needed no enforcement from his agonized face. He raised his hand and pointed to the bed, and his iron face was drawn and ashen white. I felt my knees begin to tremble. Notice how well done this is. It's very theatrical, but nothing is left to chance. There on the bed, seemingly in a swoon, lay poor Lucy, more horribly white and wan-looking than ever. Even the lips were white, and the gums seemed to have shrunken back from the teeth, as we sometimes see in a corpse after a prolonged illness. Van Helsing raised his foot to stamp in anger, but the instinct of his life and all the long years of habit stood to him, and he put it down gently. "Quick," he said, "bring the brandy." I flew to the dining room and returned with the decanter. He wetted the poor white lips with it, and together we rubbed palm and wrist and heart. He felt her heart, and after a few moments of agonizing suspense, said, "It is not too late. It beats, though but feebly. All our work is undone. We must begin again. There is no young Arthur here now. I have to call on you yourself this time, friend John." As he spoke, he was dipping into his bag and producing the instruments for transfusion. I had taken off my coat and rolled up my shirt sleeve. There was no possibility of an opiate just at present, and no need of one, and so, without a moment's delay, we began the operation. After time, it did not seem a short time either, for the draining away of one's blood, no matter how willingly it be given, is a terrible feeling. Van Helsing held up a warning finger. "Do not stir," he said, "but I fear that with the growing strength she may wake, and that would make danger, oh, so much danger. But I shall precaution take. I shall give hypodermic injection of morphia." He proceeded then, swiftly and deftly, to carry out his intent. The effect on Lucy was not bad, but the faint seemed to merge subtly with the narcotic sleep. It was with a feeling of personal pride that I could see a faint tinge of color steal back into the pallid cheeks and lips. No man knows till he experiences it what it feels like for his own lifeblood to be drawn away into the veins of the woman he loves. She doesn't love you, Doctor. Okay, as long as I remember that. The professor watched me critically. "That will do," he said. "Already?" I remonstrated. "You took a great deal more from art." To which he smiled, a sad sort of smile, as he replied, "He is her lover, her fiancé. You have work, much work to do for her and for others, and the present will suffice." When we stopped the operation, he attended to Lucy, whilst I applied digital pressure to my own incision. I lay down, whilst I waited his leisure to attend me, for I felt faint and a little sick. By and by he bound up my wound and sent me downstairs to get a glass of wine for myself. As I was leaving the room, he came after me and half whispered, "Mind, nothing must be said of this. If our young lover should turn up unexpected as before, no word with him. It would be at once frighten him and jealous him too. There must be none. So." When I came back, he looked at me carefully, and then said, "You are not much the worse. Go into the room and lie on your sofa and rest a while. Then have much breakfast and come here to me." I followed out his orders, for I knew how right and wise they were. I had done my part, and now my next duty was to keep up my strength. I felt very weak, and in the weakness lost something of the amazement at what had occurred. I fell asleep on the sofa, however, wondering over and over again how Lucy had made such a retrograde movement, and how she could have been drained of so much blood with no sign anywhere to show for it. I think I must have continued to wonder in my dreams, for sleeping and waking, my thoughts always came back to the little punctures in her throat, and the ragged, exhausted appearance of their edges, tiny though they were. Lucy slept well into the day, and when she woke she was fairly well and strong, though not nearly so much so as the day before. When Helsing had seen her, he went out for a walk, leaving me in charge, with strict instructions that I was not to leave her for a moment. I could hear his voice in the hall asking the way to the nearest telegraph office. You have to wonder. So, the wounds on Lucy's neck mean that Dracula is continuing to visit her and suck blood from the wounds on her neck. So, is he in the room? Is he just slipping by the people who are sitting right there with no hint from them? Does she know it? Or even in her dreams, is it too horrible for her to imagine? Lucy chatted with me freely and seemed quite unconscious of anything that had happened. I tried to keep her amused and interested. When her mother came up to see her, she did not seem to notice any change whatever, but said to me gratefully, "We owe you so much, Dr. Seward, all you have done, but you really must now take care not to overwork yourself. You are looking pale. You want a wife to nurse and look after you a bit, that you do." As she spoke, Lucy turned crimson, though it was only momentarily, for her poor wasted veins could not stand for long such an unwanted drain to the head. She's blushing because her mother suggested to Dr. Seward that he needs a wife, not knowing that Dr. Seward has proposed to her daughter. The reaction came in excessive pallor as she turned imploring eyes on me. I smiled and nodded, laid my finger on my lips with a sigh, and she sank back amid the pillows. Van Helsing returned in a couple of hours, and presently said to me, "Now you go home, and eat much, and drink enough. Make yourself strong. I stay here tonight, and I shall sit up with little miss myself. You and I must watch the case, and we must have none other to know. I have grave reasons. No, do not ask them. Think what you will. Do not fear to think even the most non-probable. Good night." In the hall, two maids came to me and asked if they or either of them might not sit up with Miss Lucy. They implored me to let them, and when I said it was Van Helsing's wish that either he or I should sit up, They asked me quite piteously to intercede with the foreign gentlemen. I was much touched by their kindness. Perhaps it was because I am weak at present, and perhaps because it was on Lucy's account that their devotion was manifested, for over and over again I have seen similar instances of women's kindness. I got back here in time for late dinner, went my rounds, all well, and sat this down whilst waiting for sleep. It is coming. Then the 11th of September. This afternoon I went over to Hillingham, found Van Helsing in excellent spirits, and Lucy much better. Shortly after I had arrived, a big parcel came from abroad from the professor. He opened it with much impressment, assumed, of course, and showed a great bundle of white flowers. "They are for you, Miss Lucy," he said. "For me? Oh, Dr. Van Helsing." "Yes, my dear, but not for you to play with. They are medicines." Here Lucy made a wry face. "Nay, but they are not to take in any decoction or nauseous form, so you need not snub that so charming nose of yours. Or I shall point out to my friend Arthur that what woes he may have to endure in seeing so much beauty that he has love so much distort." "Ah, my pretty miss, that brings so nice nose all straight again. This is medicinal, but you don't know how. I put him in your window. I put them in your window. It's a bunch of flowers. It's not a person. I put them in your window. You foreign loon. I make a pretty wreath and hang him round your neck so that you will sleep well. Oh, yes, they, like the lotus flower, make your trouble forgotten. It smells so like the waters of Lethe, of that fountain of youth and conquistadors sought for in Florida, to find him all too late." Whilst he was speaking, Lucy began examining the flowers and smelling them. Now she threw them down, saying with half laughter and half disgust, "Oh, Professor, I believe you're only putting on a joke with me. Why, these flowers are only common garlic." To my surprise, Van Helsing rose up and said with sternness, his iron jaw set and his bushy eyebrows meeting, "No trifling with me, I never jest. There is grim purpose in all I do, and I warn you that you do not thwart me. Take care for the sake of others, if not for your own." Then, seeing poor Lucy scared, as she might well be, he went on more gently. "Oh, little miss, my dear, do not fear me. I only do for your own good. But there is much virtue to you in those common flowers. See, I place them myself in your room. I take myself the wreath that you are to wear. But hush, no telling to others that make so inquisitive questions. We must obey, and silence is the part of obedience, and obedience bring you strong and well into loving hands that wait for you. Now sit a while. Come with me, friend John, and you shall help me deck the room with my garlic, which is all the way from Haarlem, where my friend Vanderpool raised herb in his glass house all year. I had to telegraph yesterday, or they would not be here." We went into the room, taking the flowers with us. The professor's actions were certainly odd, and not to be found in any pharmacopoeia that I've ever heard of. First he fastened up the windows and latched them securely. Next, taking a handful of flowers, he rubbed them all over the sashes, as though to ensure that every whiff of air might get in would be laden with a garlic smell. Then with a wisp he rubbed all the jamb of the door, above, below, at each side, and round the fireplace in the same way. It all seemed grotesque to me. And presently I said, "Well, Professor, I know you have always reasons for what you do, but this certainly puzzles me. It is well that we have no skeptic here, or he would say that you were working some spell to keep out an evil spirit. Because that's exactly what Van Helsing looks like he's doing. He's not applying the garlic in dust and wipings, except in entrances to the room. All entrances to the room are being covered in this. Not the bedstand, just entrances." "Perhaps I am," he answered quietly, as he began to make the wreath which Lucy was to wear around her neck. We then waited whilst Lucy made her toilette for the night, and then, when she was in bed, he came and fixed the wreath of garlic around her neck. The last words he said to her were, "Take care you do not disturb it, and even if the room feel close, do not tonight open the window or the door." "I promise," said Lucy, "and thank you both 1,000 times for your kindness to me. Oh, what have I done to be blessed with such friends?" "Nothing. You've done nothing, Lucy. If you could stop asking, that would be nice." As we left the house in my fly, which was waiting, Van Helsing said, "Tonight I can sleep in peace, and sleep I want. 2 nights of travel, much reading in the day between, and much anxiety on the day to follow, and a night to sit up without a wink. Tomorrow in the morning early you call for me, and we come together to see our pretty miss, so much strong for my spell which I have to work. Ho, ho, ho." He seemed so confident that I, remembering my own confidence 2 nights before and the baneful result, felt awe and vague terror. It must have been my weakness that made me hesitate to tell it to my friend, but I felt it all the more, like unshed tears. All right, so we have something actually quite reminiscent of Sherlock Holmes going on here, which Doyle or Stoker had to know is very effective. And that is that his mystery character, Abraham Van Helsing, who we don't know much about, we don't know what kind of a specialist he is, he knows something about what's going on that he has not told us. He's not told anyone. But he's acting on it. So his actions look strange. And that happens all the time in Sherlock Holmes stories. So he has now guarded the room with garlic. We shall see whether or not it works. So we will resume next time. Thank you, BookTube.